title, Shadows of the Shore. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the deserted beach. Sarah walked along the shoreline, the sound of waves crashing against the sand, soothing her troubled mind. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, a chance to escape the stress of her everyday life. But something felt off about this place from the moment she arrived. As she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She glanced nervously over her shoulder, but there was nothing there, just the empty expanse of sand and sea stretching out before her. She tried to push aside her unease and focus on the beauty of the ocean, the way the dying light painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. But then she saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the water, its form barely discernible in the fading light. Sarah froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Who could be out here at this hour? And why did they seem so out of place? She hesitated, unsure of what to do. Should she approach the figure, see if they needed help? Or should she turn and run back to the safety of her rented beach house? But before she could make a decision, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving Sarah alone on the beach once more. Shaken, she hurried back to her rental, locking the door behind her. She tried to convince herself that she had imagined the whole thing, that it was just a trick of the light. But deep down, she knew that something was wrong with this place, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something dark and sinister. That night, Sarah lay awake in bed, the sound of the ocean crashing against the shore echoing in her ears. She tried to tell herself that it was just the wind, just the natural rhythm of the sea. But there was something about the sound that filled her with dread, as if it was trying to tell her something she didn't want to hear. She finally drifted off to sleep, but her dreams were haunted by visions of shadowy figures lurking in the darkness, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She woke with a start, her heart racing, the memory of the dream still fresh in her mind. Determined to shake off her fears, Sarah decided to spend the day exploring the town, hoping to distract herself from the strange occurrences of the night before. But everywhere she went, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being followed by unseen eyes. As the day wore on, Sarah found herself drawn back to the beach, unable to resist the pull of the ocean. She walked along the shoreline, the sun beating down on her skin, the sound of the waves crashing against the sand, drowning out her thoughts. But then she saw it again, the figure standing at the edge of the water, its form dark and indistinct against the glare of the sun. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she watched it, her breath catching in her throat. She knew she should turn and run, get as far away from this place as possible. But something held her back, a strange curiosity that she couldn't explain. She approached the figure slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. As she got closer, she could see that it was a woman, her hair long and flowing in the breeze, her face obscured by shadow. Sarah hesitated, unsure of what to do. "Hello?" she called out tentatively, her voice barely more than a whisper. The woman didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge her presence. She just stood there, staring out at the sea as if lost in thought. Sarah took a step closer, her instincts screaming at her to run, to get away from this strange woman as fast as she could. But before she could turn and flee, the woman spoke, her voice soft and melodic. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her words sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "This place is not what it seems," the woman replied cryptically. "It is cursed, haunted by the shadows of the past. Sarah's heart raced as she listened to the woman's words, a chill running down her spine. She wanted to ask more, to know what she meant by cursed and haunted. But before she could speak, the woman vanished into thin air, leaving Sarah alone on the beach once more. Terrified, Sarah ran back to her rental, her mind racing with questions. Who was that woman? And what did she mean by the beach being cursed? She tried to push aside her fears, to convince herself that it was all just a hallucination, a trick of her overactive imagination. But deep down, she knew that something was very wrong with this place. And she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something dark and sinister, something that she might not be able to escape. That night, Sarah lay awake in bed, the sound of the ocean crashing against the shore, echoing in her ears. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that unseen eyes were following her every move. She tried to tell herself that it was just her imagination, that there was nothing to be afraid of. But then she heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible above the sound of the waves. She strained to make out the words, her heart pounding in her chest. "Help me," the voice whispered, sending a chill down her spine. Sarah sat up in bed, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She knew she should stay in bed, should pretend that she hadn't heard anything. But something compelled her to investigate, to find out where the voice was coming from. She got out of bed, her feet sinking into the soft carpet beneath her. She crept out of her room, her heart pounding in her chest as she made her way down the hallway. The house was silent, the only sound the faint murmur of the ocean outside. She followed the sound of the voice, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. It led her to the front door, which stood slightly ajar, the darkness beyond beckoning her into its embrace. She hesitated, unsure of what she would find on the other side. But then she heard it again, the voice, faint but unmistakable, coming from somewhere beyond the door. With a trembling hand, she pushed it open, the hinges creaking in protest. She stepped outside, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. And that's when she saw it. A figure, standing at the edge of the water, its form barely discernible in the moonlight. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched it, her mind struggling to make sense of what she was seeing. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice barely audible above the sound of the waves. Sarah took a step closer, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. But something held her back, a strange compulsion that she couldn't explain. She approached the figure cautiously, her senses on high alert. As she got closer, she could see that it was a woman, her hair long and flowing in the breeze, her face obscured by shadow. Sarah hesitated, unsure of what to do. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The woman didn't.